Alex Gibney, thank you very much for doing this. So, for all the years that Benjamin Netanyahu has been in the American media, I think there's very little sense in the U.S. about his domestic troubles in Israel. We keep hearing he's been charged, and the President of the United States keeps saying he's to be pardoned. You've made this documentary that explains what is at the core of this controversy. Like, what are the charges? What is he accused of doing? Did he do it? So I'm going to stand back and just let you, if you would, outline what Benjamin Netanyahu has been accused of doing.
Well, roughly speaking, you'd say it was bribery, or you'd say it was corruption. I mean, and I can detail the charges. This is a film that I produced, and it was directed by Alexis Bloom. And back in 2023, I got a strange message on Signal from somebody who said that they had all of the police interrogation videos from the Benjamin Netanyahu investigation. And they had been investigating Netanyahu since 2016 for charges of corruption. That is to say, trading on his position as prime minister to get money in all sorts of favors, jewelry for his wife, very expensive Cuban cigars, hundreds of millions of dollars in forgiveness of certain loans in order to be able to get favorable coverage on a news website called Walla. So it was a pretty interesting case, and it went from the very small, meaning very expensive Cuban cigars from a rather famous movie producer named Arnon Milchan, to something very big, which is effectively a $250 million financial arrangement in exchange for coverage, good coverage for Netanyahu. So it's a pretty big deal.
What do so you got the tapes? Let me just ask, to the extent you can say, but where did they come from?
I can't say where they came from. Yeah. I can't say anything about the source, but what I can say is we got over 1,000 hours of tapes, and these were interviews with Netanyahu himself by the police, also Netanyahu's wife, Sara, his son, Yair, also with a number of key people close to Netanyahu. For example, Nir Hefetz, his former head of communications, Sheldon Adelson, who we know in this country as a billionaire, now deceased, his wife Miriam Adelson, Arnon Milchan, a famous Israeli businessman, arms dealer, who also became a very famous motion picture producer. So it was a kind of an extraordinary array of evidence. And while some of this evidence had been published in Israel in written form, nobody had seen the tapes, and the tapes are very revealing, particularly for Netanyahu, because Netanyahu tries to cultivate this image of the grand Vizier, the great statesman of Israel. Here you see a rather petty, corrupt man desperately lying to save his skin, and his wife, who is a deeply entitled woman, trying to claim that, so what if we got stuff? I mean, we deserve it because we're doing so much for the nation and for the world. And his son Yair, who is also extremely entitled, screaming at the police, yelling, you're like the Stasi. So it was an illuminating look at the actual character behind the facade, sort of like that moment in The Wizard of Oz where, Toto pulls back the curtain and the wizard says, please pay no attention. But it was real